Hey guys, so in this video, we're going to be applying styles to the project that we've been working on. We have a lot of the structure of the HTML set up, we just need to apply styles. Now, I'm not a designer. I usually struggle a lot with CSS. CSS is very tricky. So I went ahead and I already made all the styles for this project. And I'm just going to be copy and pasting them over and explaining what each thing does. First style that we're going to do is the body. We're going to change the height and width. We're going to add 100 VW, which stands for viewport width, 100 being 100% of the viewport width. However big your screen is 100 VW. So we want the body to be 100% of the width, the max width that we can have. We're going to do the same for the height. It's going to be VH, so viewport height. If your screen gets bigger or shorter, the body's always going to take up 100% of the height that is available. Next, we're going to apply a few styles to our header and footer. We're going to do display flex. Any elements or anything inside of the header and footer, they're going to have the flex attribute assigned to them. We're going to align item center, which means that vertically they're going to be centered within the div that they're in. So if the height is 10 pixels, they're going to be centered on the 5th pixel. We're going to set the width to 100%. These elements are within the body tag. We're going to set their width to 100%, so they're going to fill up 100% of the body tag that they're in. We're also going to set height to 7%, so they're going to take up 7% of the viewport height, which we have here. We're also going to change the background color to RGB2 95-177. This is just a slightly dark blue. Press save. We're going to apply some similar CSS styles to sections 1 through 4. I'm going to paste those right here. If you're doing the same styles to multiple sections, you could just put a comma and separate those classes out. Once again, we're going to set the width to 100% and the minimum height to 22.5%. We're going to work on section 1 next. So I'm going to copy this over. We're going to set padding top to 3%. So 3% of the height, we're going to add padding to the top of section 1. That's just going to space it out from the header, just 3% of the page. We're going to set the width to 80%. It's going to overwrite the width of 100% that we have right here. We're going to set padding right 15%, padding left 15% of the screen, padding bottom 3%. The next thing we're going to focus on is the header logo. We're going to set the font weight to 700. Font weight means how bold it is, where the higher number, the more bold it is. I think the highest you could go is 900 or 950. So this is pretty bold. The lowest is 50 or 100. We're going to set the padding left to 50 pixels. We'll see it pop from the left of the screen out towards the right, 50 pixels. And we're going to set the font size to extra large. When we save this, we'll see that happen. And then we still notice that these links are stacked on top of each other over here. So let's focus on those guys next. So these are all within a div called links. If we target that div, links, then anything we apply to that will apply to all of these guys within that. We're going to set the font size to small. We're going to set margin left to auto. It's going to maximize the margin left as much as possible. And since we're in display flex, it's actually setting the margin left to auto is going to shove this all the way over to the right. If we set margin left and margin right to auto, it would center it in this available space that we have right here. But since we're just setting the margin left to auto, it's going to shove it all over here to the right. We're also going to set padding right to 50 pixels. So after we shove it all the way over to the right, we're going to bring it out from the edge of the screen 50 pixels. We're also going to set the font color to white and the font weight to 500, about medium bold. Save that and we'll see that happen. It gets shoved over here, still stacked on top of each other though. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and change all of these divs to span again. So we'll do Control Shift or Control Alt down, change this to span. And then we also need to go over here, change this to span. So if we save that, these should split out a little bit more. And they're still a little bit bunched close together. Let's add some margin to each individual link, not to the links as a whole. Margin right of 30 pixels. All of these anchor tags actually have a class of HL. Let's grab all of those and set the text decoration to none, which will get rid of this underline. Let's set the font color to white as well. Text decoration none, color, this is white. So it's a little bit easier to read. Still looks like we can click on them. That's perfect. We're going to start working on section 1 a little bit more. So we're also going to do display flex as well. So we're going to do flex direction row. Everything in here is going to be on one row. We're going to justify content space between. So the two elements that we have this S1 text and the S1 image. So there's going to be space between those two divs. We're going to set the background color to this, which is actually the background color that they give us right here. Right here. And then we're also going to set the color to this, which they give us right here. And we're going to apply a box shadow. The box shadow is going to give this div a little bit of depth beneath it. You can see there's this little bit of a shadow right here. Everything's on one row now. We're actually going to come into this sign up button and we're going to get rid of it. I don't think it really fits with what we're trying to do here. So we can just delete this, save, and then let's start focusing on these divs. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so this is easier to see for you guys. We're going to set the width of this div right here, which is section 1 text. We're going to set our width of 300 pixels and a height of 255 pixels. So if we save that, notice it made this div a little bit taller, and it actually made this wider as well. We can't really tell that right now. And then let's focus on this image over here. We don't have an image yet. We'll be doing that later. Once again, we're going to do display flex, justify content center, align item center, and then a background color of white. So what we're doing with this is we're going to be putting a border around the image that we will eventually put in here. So we're going to set the width to 255 pixels, height of 255 pixels. And once we focus on the image, we'll make the image smaller than this. So like 250 and 250. We're also going to set margin right of 35% to space it out from this right wall right here. What we're going to focus on is the actual image class. We gave S1 image. We're going to set a width, like I said, 250, height of 250, and a border radius of 8 pixels. Now that doesn't do anything yet because we don't actually have an image in here, but once we do, then we will be able to see that. Let's also add styling to this text right here. So this text has a class of S1H1. Let's increase the boldness to 700, font size to 40 pixels, so it'll be quite a bit larger. And then let's space it out from the text beneath it a little bit. Section 2. So we don't actually need to change section 2 itself, but we're going to start changing things within section 2. This is inside of a div of S2H1. We're going to do display flex again, justify content center, which will center this horizontally. We're going to do margin top 20 pixels to give it more space from this section. We're going to set the font size to 20 pixels, so a little bit larger, and a font weight of 600, so a little bit more bold as well. Let's set a standard size, width, and height to these. So we're going to do 100 pixels, 100 pixels. So these images will be a little bit smaller. We'll do display flex as well, justify content center and align item center. The images that are going to be in here are going to be aligned on the center horizontally and vertically. We're going to set the background color to the same as this. So there's going to be a border around the image. Set a border radius of 10 pixels. So the border, normally they're squares, but we're going to round those squares off a little bit. Transition 5 seconds. I'll show you what that is later. That's going to be to make it so it's a little bit more responsive. And cursor pointer. So if we hover over these, we'll see that instead of the normal pointer, it's actually this little hand pointer. Okay, we're going to do hover next. If we hover over these, we'll see them grow. What the transition does is the hover effect takes half a second to go. So if we don't have the transition, you'll notice it's almost immediate. The transition here just helps it feel a little bit more smooth. So you can see it grow over half a second and then shrink over half a second. Okay, we're also going to grab the images that are going to be in here, and we're going to set a width 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. So normally when you grab an image, it's going to have its own width and height, but if you assign it the width and height, then it has to be what you assign here, and it's not going to take its own width and height. We're going to set a border radius of 5 pixels as well, so there's going to be a rounded border on it. Border we have right here, so it's going to be a 3 pixel width border. It's going to be a solid line and it's going to be black. And once again, we're going to do a transition for the images in here. If you hover over the image, it's going to also grow to a width of 250 pixels, a height of 250 pixels, and it's going to keep its border. And then you come over here and you'll see it's going to look just like that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab all of these boxes and we're going to put them on the same line. Those are all within a div called boxes. Display flex, justify content space evenly. Along that row, they're all going to be evenly spaced apart. And we're going to do margin top of 30 pixels to give it a little more distance from this text right here. So if we save that, we'll see it right here. They still grow, and as they grow, they push away to the sides, the other boxes next to them. They'll also push this div below them down a little bit. Just going to increase the distance right here just a little bit. I want to space it out a little bit more. Instead of margin top 20 pixels, let's do margin top 70 pixels. So now it has a little bit more separation from the top section. Section 3, margin top as well of 70 pixels to give it some more distance between these squares. We're going to set the background color to, it's like a whitish gray. We're also going to put a box shadow around it to bring it out from the screen a little bit, give it some 3D depth. Once again, display flex, justify content center, line item center. So this quote is going to be centered vertically and horizontally, and we're going to do flex direction column. We want the author to be underneath the quote. Otherwise, if we did row, it would be next to it, and we don't want that. So we save this, and you'll see that this box shadow does bring this out quite a bit. Let me make this full screen so you can see. It adds quite a bit of 3D depth right there. Quote text S3H3. We're going to set a max width of 70% of the page. Font size of 20 pixels, so it's going to be a little bit larger. Font weight of light. So you could do a number, or you could do, there's quite a few options that it gives you. Sorry, it's going to be lighter. We're going to do a font style of italic, so it's going to be italicized. We're going to change the color to, it gives us this color right here. So we can see that right there, it's italicized. And then let's focus on the author text right here. That's going to be S3H4. We're going to do the same width, 70%. Margin left auto. So when we do margin left auto, it's going to shove it all the way over to the right. So we're going to use margin right 20% to bring it out from the right a little bit. We don't want it to be directly under, we want it to be somewhere like right here. And let's set a font weight of bold. So when we do that, we can see that the author goes right here. I think if we fill out this quote a little bit more, then this will look a little bit better. We're going to do .s4 box. We're going to set a width of 50% of the screen. We're going to assign a 1 pixel solid black border. So we're going to bring down the black to 50%, so it's going to be a little bit more gray. We're going to set minimum height of 100 pixels, so it's always going to be at least 100 pixels tall. We're going to set margin right to auto, margin left to auto, so that should center it in that div, which is section 4. We're going to set the background color to this blue right here. We're going to set a border radius of 20 pixels. It's going to be very rounded corners. We're going to do display flex for everything in this div. Flex direction row, so everything's going to be on the same row. Line item center, so everything's going to be aligned vertically in the center. And we're going to do justify content space around. So if we save that, you can see these two are on the same line and this button is placed over here. So let's grab section 4 and let's add a little bit of margin or padding top. Let's do 70 pixels. Save that. Now this box is placed down a little bit more. These two lines are in a div called S4HS. We're going to set their color, so the font color to white. We're going to make them very bold of 900, font size of 20 pixels, margin left of 20 pixels. So we're going to bring them out from this edge a little bit, increase the font size, increase the font weight, or make them more bold and change the font color to white. Save that. Now we can see that here. Let's start focusing on this button a little bit. That has a class of S4BTN. We're going to set the width of 120 pixels, so we'll make it a little bit more wide. Height of 30 pixels, so it's going to shrink it down a little bit. We're going to set the background color of this reddish color. We're going to set a 1.5 pixel width border around it, solid white. Border radius of 3 pixels, so we're going to round out those corners a little bit. Font weight of bold, very bold, of the text that's in here, and the font color is going to be white as well. We probably actually want to change the height of this a little bit more. Let's do 50 pixels. Let's see if that fits in there. And then let's also do some margin right. Let's do 10 pixels. It's going to bring it out from the edge of this circle right here, 10 pixels, just a little bit. Now, you'll notice if we hover over this, we don't get that cursor, that pointer cursor. Let's add that. We're also going to change the background color a little bit when we hover over it, so it's going to be a little bit more red. You might be able to see that, I'm not sure. We can make this a little bit lighter, and you should be able to see that now. The last thing we need to do is change the CSS of the footer. Display flex as well. Justify content center, so the text is going to be centered horizontally across this. I'm going to set the color to white. Font weight 700, so pretty bold. And then font size of large. Save that. Now we can see that there. So if we do full screen, you see this is coming together quite well. These links have the pointer on them. We have some responsiveness with these guys. There's some nice 3D depth for this div. And this box right here looks pretty good with another hover effect on this button. And the footer looks pretty good as well. So all that's left for us to do is personalize the text and add images, which we will do in the next video. Thanks. Bye.